Hey guys, this is the SOBs who love SOV, and I am Becca. I am joined today not by Slade, who is my other SOB most of the time, but instead by Tony Masiello. And if you listen to our last episode where we covered Zombrella's House of Horrors, you will recognize his name because he was the man responsible for this. So Tony, tell the folks who you are.
Oh, hi, everyone. I'm Tony Masiello. Thanks for having me here, Rebecca. I run a website called sovhorror.com, and pretty much it's a website all dedicated to shot-on-video horror movies and my love for them. And we distribute some SOV DVDs. We got about 3 different titles right now. And yeah, I'm just a big fan of shot-on-video movies, and glad to be here and excited to talk to you about these great movies tonight.
And right now, they can actually get a couple of your films that you're distributing for a really good price on your website. Is that true?
Yeah, it's the last part of our sale, $8 right now. It's about half off of Metal Noir, and then also my film with Tim Ritter, Zombrella's House of Horrors. And we just released a new movie called The Spirit Gallery as well that's out, so...
Awesome. And so if you are an SOB who loves SOV, then definitely you should be checking out SOVhorror.com. It just makes sense. But Slade, as everybody knows, Slade had, I don't mean to laugh about it, but Slade had some major health problems for a while. And so the show was kind of on hold. Those have been taken care of. But now he has a family member who has a lot of health problems. So I hope everything goes better for Slade, but he is definitely spending a lot of time with his family, and that's where he should be. So Tony is playing around with the idea of either being on our podcast, guesting on our podcast, doing his own podcast, or whatever. So this is his initiation, anyway. But we had planned on these movies for a while, all 3 of us actually. So we are just going to get into it. So. Marcus Cook is an effects guy. I only got to know Marcus and his wife Jessie sites maybe in the last 6 months, just being involved with some extreme horror groups. And then I realized after that we were friends with all the same people. They worked in all the movies that I liked and I was interviewing directors for and everything else. It's like one of those things where you find out your neighbor is like, you know, the person who's in the cubicle next to you. And so we had a couple movies from him that were shot on video that we had wanted to do. And then coincidentally last weekend, Jessie and Marcus did a documentary called Beyond Horror. They had their world premiere at the Nightmares Film Festival last weekend. I was very lucky to see it there and also to see them accept their award for Best Directors. That was very exciting. Very awesome. So this is like our Marcus Palooza. These are a couple of very old shot-on-video movies that Marcus gave us. So Tony, what is your association with Marcus?
Well, I first heard about Marcus when we both worked on a movie called High 8, and we both contributed segments to that film. And I had actually heard about Rot years ago. You know, like a lot of guys, I was an avid Fangoria reader, and I remember seeing the ads for Rot in the back of the magazines, and that crazy smile face Joel D. Wynkoop has on the cover of that film. And I was always intrigued. I always wanted to see it, but I never ordered it, and so kind of forgot about it over time. And yeah, so just recently got Rod and Bad Blood from Marcus, you know, got into contact with him. I saw he was selling these DVDs, which I want to recommend these DVDs. The ones I got were painted. He did painted covers, and they're amazing. They're really cool. So I urge everyone to go check those out and pick those up from him. But yeah, Mark's a cool guy, good filmmaker, and excited to kind of discuss his work today with you.
Yeah. And again, Jessie, she is also an effects person. They kind of had their own separate careers for quite a while till they met, and now they're kind of almost like the dynamic duo. But
Nice.
yeah, really, seriously. I mean, they do some great work, but their documentary, I'll just plug it again. It's called Beyond Horror, and it is actually a history of extreme films. So there is a little bit of a crossover with some of the stuff that we like to talk about on here. So this is going beyond what your video store sells and what your average viewer can deal with, and the whole history of it and the repercussions and some of the filmmakers that are involved with that. So they are close to getting distribution. Just gonna plug it there. And it should be the festival cut was like way too short. But I mean, I knew I was gonna feel that way because I know they have like 4 hours that they want to have. And they had to cut it down to 80 minutes. And I know that I'm a backer, and they had a perk for a while where a backer perk is that you could get the extended cut when it comes out, and it was going to be like 3 hours long. Yeah. So I'm like excited. So in June that should be out, but everybody else got to wait because you had to get on that train early.
Marcus actually asked me to be part of it, and I was kind of apprehensive, so I didn't do it. But I'm excited to see the movie, though. It's definitely a subject that I think should be covered at this point, in horror history.
Right, and it's a very divisive topic.
Sure.
And so, what was your apprehension, just not being associated with that particular genre, or?
I think like a lot of guys, I grew up very into extreme horror and simulated snuff, all that type of stuff. But as I've gotten older over the years, kind of my tastes have changed. And I'm not so much into the extreme graphic stuff anymore, gross for gross sake, as I say. So, I decided I probably am not the right person to be interviewed for that,
No, I mean, that's a totally valid reason. Although I will say that's kind of a perspective that they were looking to get. So, so you screwed them over, Tony.
well, maybe I'll talk to Marcus after this. Maybe I'll change my mind.
They were basically looking for the perspective, because it's either people who've seen them and they love them, right, or people who are like, no, I would never watch that. They're just going to suck. And they couldn't find anybody who said, no, I really don't like to watch those because insert intelligent reason here. Sure. They could not find that. It was either like, oh no, I would never watch that, or like, oh man, I love that shit. And they just couldn't find anybody who could intelligently like say, yeah, I've seen them, and maybe I used to like them or whatever, but here's why I don't enjoy watching them. But they just couldn't find that. So
SOV is the same way for a lot of people too. It seems like you pretty much have your two camps,
Right. It's you love it or you hate it. Well, or you love it or you have no idea what it is. Let's put it that way. But there is that third camp of like, maybe I picked up a movie or two at the video store based on the cover, and I got it home and I was like, what is this piece of shit? You do have that kind of third camp with SOV.
Yeah. The people feel ripped. Yeah.
Yeah. The people who are like, right. And especially back in the day when you couldn't tell the difference between a really low budget movie and a fairly high budget movie based on the VHS cover. I mean, it still happens today. I mean, but
I think a lot of us, even as fans, I mean, we were all kind of duped as well when we first got into them and was like, what the hell is this? And we slowly started to love them,
So this is the first time we've actually spoken voice to voice. But we both, everybody has a story about why they are drawn to SOV, because it's not something, it is something that is very niche, and it is something that does tend to either make people love it or hate it. So what is your appeal? What do you think is the appeal for you for SOV, or how did you get into it, and why is it still such a part of your life?
Sure. So when I was younger, I was pretty much obsessed with horror. I think my first VHS tape was a copy of Troll when I was about 6 or 7 years old. And from there, it just started. I started collecting Friday the 13th movies. And, you probably remember back then, Rebecca, the tapes were so expensive.
Oh, yeah.
You'd buy a used copy from Sears that was beat the hell up, for $40-$50,
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't easy to get tapes back then.
No.
But so, you discover the rental store and the amazing place that is the rental store. And, I was just a little horror freak, and I had to watch as many horror movies as I could, and one membership became 2, became 3, became 4, became 5. And next thing you know, my mom's driving me to every video store in San Diego, searching for horror films. And so inadvertently, you're going to run across shot on video movies. I mean, there wasn't a lot of them, but they're definitely on the shelves, and stuff like Feeders, and Cannibal Campout and stuff like that. And, so I think, I don't know really when I fell in love with shot on video movies, to be honest with you. But a very long time ago. I mean, I've been into these films, pretty much since I was a teenager. And, pretty much, I started making my own short films like lots of kids do. I was influenced by people like the Polonia brothers and Todd Sheets, seeing these movies and getting Alternative Cinema magazine, which was another big one. I think, that was a magazine that and Draculina were pretty much devoted mainly to shot on video type films. And so those were very influential, and started making my own stuff, and eventually decided to, actually try to make it a career, and went to college and studied video production, so I could try to be Todd Sheets, so I could try to be like these guys. And since then, I've worked in the Hollywood film industry. I've done a lot of 3D work on big films, Transformers, Shrek 3, whole bunch of stuff. And
not shot on video, definitely.
Yes, not shot on video, yes. But well, that's the funny thing is, all the while I was working on these big Hollywood films, I was also doing, effects for people like Brett Kelly and Chris Seaver and these low budget guys, Tim Ritter, working with people, and eventually I started working on what was going to be a documentary about shot on video films, because those pretty much influenced me to get where I am today. And, I thought they needed some respect. You talk to most people and they go, "Oh, that's garbage,"
Right.
and I thought these movies are a lot more than that. Sure, some of them suck. Sure, just like any genre of anything. Some of them aren't very good, but there's a lot that are great. And so I started doing that around 2011. And I think at this point I've amassed interviews with over 40 filmmakers. And, I decided to change the documentary to a web series, purely based on, I feel I can't tell the story in 2 hours. It's probably the same problem Marcus is having with his documentary.
Right.
To truly tell the scope and real story, you can't do it in 2 hours. So
Especially if you love it. Because you can't kill the baby at that point. Like, you can't have that objective eye and be like, I can cut this part out. Be like, no, but that's the best part.
Well, to me, it is about preserving the history. There's not a lot of things preserving the history of this genre. Most of the history that has been preserved in books and all that has been pretty negative until recently, when we got Analog Nightmares,
yeah,
which is great.
Right.
And
the other thing too, the preservation of this. There are sadly a lot of movies that we just they're just gone, because there were only so many copies of them, and a lot of them probably got trashed, and VHS isn't exactly the most reliable format anyway. And so maybe, in like, everybody who has those like rarities, like, hold on to them. And so maybe you can see some bootlegs, and maybe you can see some, YouTube videos, but it's not the same. And I'm all for them putting them on DVD and that kind of thing. But
well, when I discovered Metal Noir, that was on a dub tape that I got from filmmaker Jay Wolfel. We were kind of talking, and I was like, yeah, I still collect VHS, and he had a bunch of tapes, and he gave me a bunch of these tapes, comp tapes, and Metal Noir was on one of those. And I was shocked when I found out no one had seen that movie before. I was like, what? No one's heard of this movie? And after doing the research and everything, and I mean, we actually had to recut that movie because the master tapes were destroyed. They were molded because they're so old, and that's what's happening to a lot of these movies. Like you said, they're just kind of disappearing. And I'm so glad that there's companies now trying to save them, trying to preserve them, because it is history, and I think it's an important part of history.
And I've heard so many stories, not just with video, but just film in general. I've heard so many stories lately of, we just found them. Just like with what you said, I talked to J.R. Bookwalter a few weeks ago, and he just remastered Robot Ninja. And he's like, I just never did it before because I didn't know where it was. And somebody had it, and they were cleaning out storage area, and they were like, "Oh, hey, we've got this robot ninja stuff. You want it?" Like,
Right.
I mean, and think about it. It's so hard to think about in this day and age where everything is on our phones and we have backups and, you know, and external drives and, you know,
Right.
6 ways to Sunday. But it's like when there's like one copy of something and somebody took it and then it's gone, you know. But there has been a lot lately that have been coming back up. So that's pretty, I'm very excited about all that. So.
Same here. I always love to hear of a new one coming out.
Yeah,
You
like
get
a
excited.
new old one. Even
Yep.
if it's terrible, I mean, a lot of those kind of are. There is a reason why some of them were just like put in somebody's storage closet
Sure.
and
Yeah.
never saw the light of day. I know. What was the one Polonia Brothers did? That they rediscovered, and he had to recut the whole thing. Was it Church of the Damned?
I think they've done a few, but Church of the Damned was one. Yeah.
Was one.
Church of the
Yeah.
Damned was one.
And it's amazing. Like, you know, he has to use his memory. Like, if somebody else had found that movie, there'd be no way. He had to piece it all together based on.
And what
kind
an
of his
amazing
memory.
movie that is.
Yes,
I
it's
mean,
great.
talk about impressive.
Yeah,
I mean,
those boys knew what they were doing. That's for sure.
it's so amazing, you know, what they were doing back then. Light years ahead of most 15-year-old filmmakers, myself included. You know?
Light years ahead of probably a lot of adult filmmakers, but
Yeah.
sometimes youth is an advantage.
Right. Sure. Yeah. Imagination.
Okay, so let's just go on to our movies of the day. So we are going to start with a film called Bad Blood. So I do have the DVD from Marcus here. I will read the synopsis from the back. So, the evolution of vampires is very hard to read, by the way. It's very blurry. The evolution of vampires has taken place, and they're not to be fucked with. They're the most deadliest creatures alive. When the evil powers of darkness enlighten one vampire, Eric Hemswitch, the mortal world will go to hell, turning worthy mortals into ghoulish monstrosities and gruesomely disposing the rest of the human race, leaving running carnage to clutter the earth. You can't stop the unstoppable, not even slow them down. This new breed of vampires no longer needs fresh blood to keep them alive. They'll live forever from the pure essence of the evil that fills their unhuman hearts. And the new breed is born. So that's a pretty dramatic way of saying it, but yeah, I guess that's right. So this movie, he had said, when I bought it, he said, yes, this is my movie from like 1990 to 95. So this is, again, one of those ones where he shot it over multiple years, pieced things together. So it doesn't really have a year. I think this represents probably the early to mid 90s in his life. And what was your overall thought on this one? Let's just start there.
You know, I like this one. The main, you know, it kind of starts off with this, it starts off in kind of gothic days, which is really cool.
Yeah.
And I think he kind of nailed that 90s kind of vampire Anne Rice style in that early footage. And I definitely want to mention there's that great shot of that castle.
Yes.
Which I thought that was really cool. I'm guessing that was like some type of fish tank ornament or something, but I thought the way he shot it and everything was really, really cool.
Right. And with the lightning, I have it written down, reminded me of Young Frankenstein.
Yeah.
Yes.
That was really cool and really creative, I thought.
Yeah.
So it kind of starts, you know, back in I don't know, what would that be, the 1800s, 1700s or something.
Yeah, it was the late 1700s, I believe, is what they said.
Yeah, and, you know, the movie kind of starts, you're following this vampire-type character named Vladovich, who got this object. What is it? It's the time key.
The time key or the...
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, you know, all the vampires want this time key because they can travel through time and all this. And then, but this other vampire kind of gets it and drops it. And he no longer can travel through time. And I guess the reason I mention all that is because, you know, the main thing that I noticed and what kind of threw me aloof at first is, you know, it does jump time. So you jump from that kind of medieval stuff to following a writer, and then kind of more modern day, and you're following this Vladovich character for probably the first half of the movie. He's kind of like your lead, but then all of a sudden it leads to the Henrich character, Eric Henrich, which was a little disorientating. You know, it's kind of like, but like you said, obviously he made this over a long period of time, so maybe he lost actors and, you know, wrote people off, who knows what the original vision of this was. But so that kind of lost me at that point. I was kind of like, okay, I was following the Vladovich story, and now it's, the Eric Hensvich story, and I'm getting a little lost here.
Right, and that was one of the things that I had a little bit of a problem with, is those two actors look a ton alike. And they're both supposed to be back from those Gothic days, and so they're both dressed alike. And so I was like, wait a minute, why? I thought his name was Vladovich or whatever, and I thought he had just like a standard American accent. Why is he changing all of a sudden? But the saving grace of this, though, that to me was the fact that they had kind of, I guess you say, the wraparound, that this is a story being told by a writer in modern times. Mm-hmm. And so it keeps going. There are several parts, like the beginning starts out, it's her talking to her editor and saying, hey, I've got this great idea for a story, and she kind of sets it up. And then in the middle, it really helps because she takes the book to the editor, and then she tells you basically everything that happened and what's yes. Yes, and it's like, okay, thank you, because I didn't catch me in. Yes, I didn't catch that guy's name. Thank you. So that's kind of what helped me with that. But yeah, I mean, right. it does time jump, and it has like basically 3 different settings because you've got the 90s reality, I guess you could call it. But then you also have the 90s that is in the fictional story that she's writing.
Right.
So, yeah, there's a lot going on, but I thought it was kind of cool. And the more I think about it, I like the way it was structured. It was just maybe a lot for a movie that didn't have, the funding and the concise amount of time, like you said, to put it together. Right. So.
Well, I mean, there's some really impressive stuff in this movie. I mean, I love the music. I thought the music was really cool. Mm-hmm. And the camera work, there was some really cool camera work as well. There's this whole scene where Vlad is like getting the time key from this other character kind of in the middle of the movie. And the camera is kind of doing all these weird 360 moments, but it's like intercutting, and it's very well put together.
And you just hear him, they keep showing her and him, you hear like he's in her head, and you keep hearing him say like, come here, you're going to give me the key, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, the way that was done was really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I agree, the characters were a little confusing. At one point, the Vladovich character actually cuts his hair and dyes it.
Right, and, which had to have been a time thing. That. Yes.
And which is very, it does kind of make it more confusing. But what really saved it is I was kind of losing steam near the second act of this movie. But near the end, what happens is Hensvich has decided that he wants to take over the world. He's pretty much this vampire he's a new breed of vampire. Right. He's like this perfect breed of vampire who can't die.
Right. So we should probably mention that he had been bitten by Vladovich. And
yes.
You're to think that he died, but she explains, which I never would have gotten, the writer explains that he was left to die, but he didn't die, became a vampire, and spent like the 200 and some odd years learning witchcraft and black arts and all these other things, and became like this super, super vampire who can't die.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he takes out Vladovich and steals, Vladovich's underlings to start this new breed of vampire. And what I loved about that, Rebecca, is his whole aim, he's kind of like this evil character at first, and you kind of think, oh gosh, this guy's kind of a jerk. But the reason he wants to start this new breed of vampire and kind of take over the world is because he wants to create world peace, which I found interesting.
Right. Now, I will say I question his logic on this. Yes. But his intentions, yes, towards the end, you find out he has very, very good intentions.
Yes.
He just doesn't quite think it through, because he says if we're, if we make everybody this, and I think he kind of wants to kill off like kind of the shit people. But like everybody else, we're going to make you one of these things. And now there's only going to be one race. So we can't have racism.
There's going to be no racism, no. Yeah.
Right. But here's the thing. The reason why when we see, vampire movies, when we see like diverse groups of people who are like, you see men, women, black, white, Hispanic, old, young, and they're all hanging out together. The reason is because they're unified because of being vampires.
Right.
against the quote unquote humans. Right?
Yeah.
So now you take away the thing that puts them together, that unites them. They're just going to separate somehow, some other way. But that's okay.
Right.
It's okay. That's okay, Eric. You had it. You had a good idea. So,
well, and that massacre is great. I mean, that's what
yes.
ultimately saved the end of the movie
Yes.
for me. Is Eric and his minions go on this massacre and this fright show, and I mean, there's a lot of great gore there. You know, they throw all the action and the gore in like the last 15 minutes of the movie.
Yeah, and obviously that was kind of, I'm sure, his effects showcase.
Oh, for sure, yeah. There's some great effects. Oh my gosh, that head split.
Oh,
you know, where
yes, and the way that
cover
they
of the DVD, it's amazing.
And the way that they did it was, it was one of those things where it's like that creativity of like, they're in some kind of like basement or something, and there's sort of like this light flashing, and so some of it can be like masked a little bit. And so the effect looks really, really good.
Yeah, just cutting in between the strobe, but it looks so great. It's so effective and so awesome. Yeah.
Right, and it's one of those things of like, you flip off the lights and flip on the lights, and then something like crazy happens. So yeah, it was just really effective and really creative. I would say like a movie like this, for like earlier work for most people in his position, probably would have not had any story whatsoever, and then just culminated into this huge like effects showcase. So I like that it actually had a story, and that there's actually, like, we're talking about people's names and stuff. How often does that happen?
Yeah.
But no, yeah, the massacre was awesome. And another thing that I thought was creatively done is, you know, they didn't have a lot of people, and they start. Right. So at the end, they're like, well, what are we going to do with all these bodies? They're like, we got to burn them. And so there's only like, 6 of them or whatever. They're all like carrying one body. And it's like, wait a minute. They've just been massacring like an entire city.
Too, the bodies have no blood on them is one thing I noticed. They've just all been massacred, but they're all wearing white T-shirts and they're clean.
Now that's, and yes, that is forgivable. But when they started making the pile, I thought, oh God, they're going to have this tiny little pile. But they somehow like filmed it to where,
it looks good.
Yeah, I don't know if they like put some dummies below them, or they just like started putting mattresses on there and had other people like on top of it or whatever. But it started looking like a big pile, so I was good with that.
Oh, it looked like it was like human Jenga.
Yeah,
you know, just the big. Now I thought that was really cool, and it kind of reminded me of the end of Night of the Living Dead.
Yes,
you know,
exactly.
I don't know if that was kind of a reference to that or not, but.
And I would guess there were a couple different things, like a couple little reference things. Like there was one, I can't even remember what he was saying and who said it, but something about, I love the smell of like fresh blood in the morning. And, you know, there were some obvious little homages, but yeah, the way they lit the pile and stuff, that did seem very Night of the Living Dead. Now, my one continuity thing that I caught was Sonia, who is like the curly headed girl. She's about the only girl in the gang.
Wasn't it Sonya? It was Tanya and Sonya.
Sonya, yeah. So she basically she hitchhikes, gets a ride with this guy. They take him back and make him one of them. And she's wearing a white dress. And my first thought was, why the hell would you wear a white dress when you know you're going to viciously murder this guy? And of course it's just ruined. You know, it's just covered in blood. But the next scene, she's like, they've turned him, and she's kind of like trying to like get him put back together because he's had to go through kind of the pain of it. And he's in the bathtub, and she's washing him off, and her dress is like completely white again.
Right.
And the only reason I noticed it was because I was like, oh, sweetie, that was a bad choice of wardrobe for you to do. And then it's like, oh, okay, I guess not. She has some kind of magical detergent. So love it.
Well, you know, I'm sure vampires, you know, they keep good detergent around, you know.
Right, or she could have had
keep those whites white.
She could have had 2 of those dresses too, because she knows. She buys it and is gonna be like, I love this dress, but it's not gonna last in my house.
Right.
The one thing that we didn't talk about that she wasn't really explored, but kind of our human who drives all this.
Yvette, right?
Yvette, right. So at the very beginning, she's at a gravesite. You're assuming of a boyfriend, husband, fiance, something. And basically she's crying and alluding to that he had killed himself a year prior to that day. And I thought she gave a really, really good performance. Like, I was like, oh, man, Yvette. But she gets home and her dad has sent her that time key. So that's where all that comes in, which I didn't quite get how he got it. I'm assuming he found it somewhere on the ground around the castle.
And what's funny is the whole Yvette and the time key story almost seems to get dropped, by the middle of the movie. And
yeah,
it's kind of almost forgotten about. And I'm guessing that's because of the time it took to make the film,
Right,
but
because that's also once Vladovich gets the key from her,
right.
you would think that she would be somehow like, she was supposed to be turned. He was promising her immortal life and all this other stuff. So probably that's about the turn where it went to Eric's character. So again, it's probably like, well, we lost that actress, so we're just gonna forget about her.
Well, I just got done editing another Lost SOV that we're about to put out, and that movie had something similar where, the original main actor pretty much had to leave, so they killed him off, and it switches gears that second half. Because when you do make a movie over 5, 6, 7 years, people are going to drop out. People are going to leave, and,
right. Your main vampire is going to cut
his
hair, and you're going to have to work that into the story.
And that was really clever, I thought, how they did that.
Right, because he was saying something about he needed to get with the times or whatever, or like he needed to modernize.
Well, what was nice, too, is when they went back in time, he had the blonde hair again as well. So they had the foresight to shoot that first, at least,
Yeah, and they did that was cool that they did his flashback. So not his, but Hemsworth's flashback, or Hemswitch. I'm going to call him Hemsworth every time here. They did his flashback and showed how, showed him coming back and him training and all that stuff. So that was pretty cool. And I also, so we're like all over the place with this, but that's kind of the way it has to be. But
that's how this movie is, right? It is kind of a little hard to follow,
But it's not chronological either. There's a lot of flashbacks and a lot of jumping. But I really liked the flannel 90s vampire thugs. Like I think I call, like, what did I call them?
It was Nikolai. What was the other guy's name? I don't remember.
But they all had like very old-fashioned names. Like the driver guy, this is like 1990 something. The guy's name was Laszlo. Like, really?
Laszlo, yeah.
But no, I put flannel dork vamps. Yeah, and they're just like the little idiots, and so they were kind of the comic relief.
Right.
But they end up being the great, great, great blah blah grandsons of the two men, which was
Well, and I was questioning because it kind of Nikolai, or that's the name of the grandson, Nikolai, and he's one of Vladovich's underlings, and Vladovich wants to go straight. He doesn't want to kill innocent people. Where Nikolai's like, no, we want to kill all these people. And him and his flannel wearing Beavis and Butthead friend kind of go on massacres. And there's that great scene where they rip off that kid's head and then throw him on the train tracks. That's a really cool scene. I really like that scene.
Right. And they're not very smart, and so they think we're going to put them on the train because they've been told not to kill any innocent people. And then the one says, well, no, he said just not to kill them innocently. Right. And it's like, that doesn't even make sense, dude. Like, they're so stupid, And then they put it on the train tracks, not even thinking, like, because they don't want to get caught. They're going to get killed by Vladovich. They know it. But there was never a train in that area the whole time. Like, how often does a train go on any random train tracks, man? You're going to get so busted.
And I wondered, like, the actor who played Nikolai did look a lot like the Eric Hemswitch. And I almost question if it was the same actor playing two parts.
It may have been, because he did say, the likeness is uncanny or whatever. But
and they did look very similar, yes, if not the same. Yeah.
But then again, I thought the two main vamps looked like the same person. So I am
it's
not the one to ask. Yes, I'm not the one to ask. That's why I appreciate, maybe this is why I like slashers. I've thought about this before. I really appreciate that they know that you aren't going to get to know the characters at all, and so they have to make them all completely different, so you can be like, oh yeah, the big, the fat guy, or the redhead, or the busty blonde, or whatever. Right, those tropes. I swear that's how those tropes started, because it's like you have to have some distinguishing factor, because that's all you're going to know about them.
Sure.
But
one with the aesthetic of badly lit, shot on video. And I don't want to say badly lit. I mean, it's lit pretty good, but you know, that old high 8 type video camera, it's not very good quality.
right,
And so yeah, it's kind of hard to tell. It's hard to discern who's who sometimes.
right,
You know?
it's vampire stuff, so there's a lot of night shots, and yeah, it's pretty yeah, but it's pretty ambitious, I think, for the time.
Oh, extremely.
I liked it.
Yeah.
He kind of said it. This is my shitty movie, and he just put the bar really low, and I didn't think that when I was watching it.
He told me that when I bought it from him. He's like, yeah, that one's really shitty, and same deal. But I thought it was really good. I mean, honestly, I didn't think it was half bad. I enjoyed it.
So because assuming you watch this or there's just no spoilers in this, but at the end. So then it's the whole time. So he's standing behind the writer, and she's going super apeshit batty, like the whole movie, because she's not sleeping. She's just living off Diet Coke. But you can tell she's going a little crazy. But he's standing behind her, and I'm guessing dictating this entire story to her. And it was supposed to have really happened. Is that the point of him writing that letter or writing whatever his story at the end?
That's my guess, but I don't really know.
Yeah, because he said it's 1995. It's been 2 years since I started this and blah blah blah. So yeah, that was kind of my impression, is that he was like giving her the story somehow.
You know, my guess with the writer stuff, like the writer stuff was good, and like you said, it did help out with the plot. It did explain the plot a lot of times when it was a little confusing on what was going on. But I kind of took the writer stuff more as just like padding. You know, to kind of get the running time up a little bit on the film. It didn't seem to really add too much other than helping with those expositional.
No, that's what I was going to say. No, it made me understand.
Yeah. Which was helpful. I mean, it's good those were there. You know, I think without those, the movie would have suffered for sure, because you'd just be so confused.
Yeah. So I would say, all in all, I like this movie. Are you a rater? Like, do you like to rate with numbers?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So our usual thing, and I don't think that Slade and I really ever do on this one, but why the hell not? So usually in the Micah Madness, we do a 10 scale with half points. So what would you give?
I've always did the old video scale. You know, the old video books. It'd be like 0's turkey, 1 is bad, 2 is fair, 3 is good, 4 is great, 5 is excellent.
Okay,
that's kind of the scale I'm used to. Yeah, we could do that.
Okay, so let's do that. What would be yours then?
I'd give this one a 2.5. I thought it was, it was decent. It wasn't great, but I mean, for a first effort, I thought it was cool. Like you mentioned earlier, there's story, which is really nice and refreshing in this type of film. I thought it's very ambitious. There's some great camera work, some good music, some great effects. I mean, but it's not an amazing movie, Yeah. It's the type of movie, I think, if you're a big shot on video fan, you'll enjoy it. Check it out,
Yeah, but totally check it out.
You're not going to be wanting to rewatch it every year. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I'm going to give it about the same, probably 2.5 or 3. Sorry, I'm waffling here, but yeah, same sentiments there.
You're listening to the Prescribed Films Podcast Network, home to hundreds of hours of free podcast entertainment. The shows on this network all have a common goal: providing you with the best discussions about movies and other forms of entertainment media. The PFPN hopes to fill your earholes with audio joy. Visit our website with links to all the other amazing shows at www.thepfpn.com. Thanks for listening.
Okay, everybody, we are going to talk about another Marcus Cook movie called Rot from 1999. It is a movie so nice, we're going to review it twice, kids. So we had some technical difficulties, and we actually went all the way through our review of this. It appeared to have recorded, and then when I went to edit, it just cut out Tony's voice about 5 minutes in. So we're just going to talk about it again. You know, not a big deal, right? And actually, see, things can get a little better whenever you plan a little bit more. So I did find out this does have an IMDb entry. So I'm going to read the synopsis. Okay, this is written by Anonymous, so I don't know what we're going to get here. Sarah has a surprise and gruesome announcement for Muzzy. She's contracted a deadly virus called the Rot, which she got by sexing a dead guy from the local funeral home, and now she's passed it along to Muzzy. Slowly, the two of them begin to rot alive, spreading the insidious, flesh-melting disease to friends and foes and any unfortunate individual that comes into contact with them. Okay, I'm going to stop there, because the rest of it I feel is spoilers, even though this will be spoilers. So, yeah, so Sarah likes to have sex with dead bodies at the funeral home, and she contracts a little something and brings it home to Muzzy. So, What are your initial thoughts of this film?
Oh, I love this movie. I thought it was great. The beginning, it's a great start. You know, it starts with this great credit sequence of all the names of the actors on the toe tags, which is really clever and cool.
Yes, which is actually, that's where I got the thumbnail that these people will be looking at. I just took a screenshot of when it goes to the toe tag that says Rot, because that was super awesome.
So yeah, Sarah and Muzzy, you know, they're kind of punk rockers, which I think is really cool. You know, I really like punk rock music. The music's really cool in this film, and you know, and you got to mention Joel D. Wynkoop, as Dr. Robert Olson.
That's right. Okay, so we're just gonna do it. We did it before. We're doing it again. So, tell the kids what rot really means.
It's Robert Olson transmutation virus.
That's right, R-O-T, rot. So yes, we've got crazy Joel Wynkoop, kind of steals the show, as he usually does. If you are listening to this podcast, I'm going to assume you know who the hell we're talking about. The two of them, it's kind of ragey punk, and we start out with Sarah, like, puking, like, nasty, nasty puke. And you don't really know if she's just, like, off of a bender or something. So it kind of sets the tone right there. But yeah, so she basically fucks her boyfriend and then tells him that he's got what she's got, which is...
Oh, by the way...
so romantic. Okay, so we had some theories about their relationship. They have a very weird relationship. Your theory was...
My theory was, you know, they're kind of punk rockers, so they're kind of like fuck buddies, you know. To me, they didn't seem like a typical boyfriend and girlfriend. You know, they kind of have more of a friendly relationship where they fuck. So that was kind of my theory.
And you were basing this on you've known many Sarahs, and you're like...
Yes, you know.
In the punk scene. I was saying more like I felt like maybe they'd been together for so long that they just didn't know any different. Because there were times where you kind of felt like almost they liked each other, like they were very like comfortable with each other, liked each other, and there are other times they were like a married couple who just looks at each other with the biggest disdain. But yeah, so they for whatever reason they decided just to go have fun. So we didn't go too much into detail, but the first time around, so we'll go into some more detail. So they go to a payphone and they ask for the White House. And he says, there is a bomb, you know, in the certain area of the White House, which I'm not sure how you just get connected straight to the White House. But he must have, because this actually puts the authorities on their trail. Correct? So they're doing this bomb threat. And then they just, I guess they're just trying to embrace themselves at this point, because they break into this house. Is that what you think? Or are they just trying to be punk rock and rot at the same time?
I think you just hit the nail on the head. I think they're being punk and rot at the same time. I think they've realized, oh shit, we're dying. Let's do whatever the hell we feel like.
Which
let's get into some trouble.
Don't know that I necessarily disagree with. I mean, they really, at least at first, they don't hurt anybody. So they break into this house, and this dates the movie horribly because the girl says, this is way better than 90210, which is probably something I would say. And also something probably Jesse Seitz would say, too. We were talking about different, like quote-unquote, like, female-empowered 90s TV shows, and every one we came up with was a 90s TV show. Oops. But there is one weird thing here that I'd love to know. Like, this is a posh house. There's like a couch that's kind of floating in the middle of the room, and it has like that little like table behind it, like that people have. I don't know what it's called, a side table or something. There's just like a random jar of pickles there. I don't know why. I'd like to know if there's significance to that. Yes, there's just a jar of pickles in the middle of the living room. Is this posh house that has absolutely no knickknacks, no nothing. There's a jar of pickles. Anyway.
Maybe that was the craft services for the day.
That might have been, actually. So, Marcus, if that was, then you are kind of you're not taking care of your peeps.
I've been on worse film sets. That's actually not bad. At least there's food.
Okay, so what's the worst situation you've been in on a film set? As far as just creature comforts go, not necessarily like personalities and that kind of thing.
Well, as far as like craft services go, I was working on a movie that I'm not going to disclose the title of it, but a 35 millimeter feature film, and I did various things on this particular movie, but one day I was asked to do craft services, and I was given about $30 to feed a crew of about 40 people, and at the same time was told to have vegetarian options available.
Okay, well, I already have a solution for you right now. Ramen for everybody.
Well, I was told, go buy rotisserie chickens and then break them up and try to make it look like a lot more food than it is. And I had a lot of angry crew people at me that day.
What the hell? Rotisserie chickens are like fairly expensive. I mean...
well, out here in California, you get one for like $5 or $6.
But yeah, but if you only have $30...
Yeah, like I said, it was not much.
Yeah, I would have gotten a huge bag of rice, maybe. It's like, wow. I could probably have made that work.
I think this was probably already at hour, 7 or 8 of the day. I think the reason I was sent to get food was everyone was complaining.
Right. And
so the whole idea was get the food in these people's mouths,
But we will not say what film this is, but you will tell me off the air just because I'm curious.
I can tell you off the air, sure. I'd rather not put down anyone,
Yeah. So they burn the house down, and then they go she goes to the funeral home, and we find we meet Dr. Winecoop, Robert Olson, janitor, physicist, medical doctor, a little bit of everything. And we find out he's been kind of watching her, huh?
Yeah. Well, he's kind of got a little crush on her. He was watching her get real close to the corpses because she was taking photos with the corpses. That's how she kind of starts off. She's breaking in the mortuary taking photos. But slowly she starts to get kind of turned on and gets closer and closer to him. And he's observing all this. So he eventually, puts the virus into one of those corpses, very well knowing that she's going to sleep with this corpse. Right. This is his whole master plan.
Right. Because he's
in love with him.
Because he's got the antidote. So yeah, this is a very elaborate way to make a woman want to go out to dinner with you, by the way, guys. Yeah. I would not suggest it. And not to mention the fact he's been kicked out of every job he's ever had. He was like kicked out. He's like banned from like government work. He's
like a government scientist. Yeah.
Yeah. But so he's doing his experiments as he's a janitor here. But what I love too is that he's never put off by the fact that she's. He even mentions it's a continuum. It's not like she just walks on one day and just like starts fucking a corpse. Like, he's like, I saw you take the pictures, and then you started fondling them, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, I know you're crazy, but did you ever stop to think, man, this girl's probably crazier than I am?
I hate some guys like those types of girls,
That is true, actually. Yes. But, okay, you know what? I probably have very few female listeners anyway, and the ones that listen won't care for me to say this, but there's the saying, crazy pussy is the best pussy. Yeah. So she totally embodies that, I'm sure.
Sure, yeah.
But they have this good idea of, and I think it's Muzzy that comes up with it, because she goes to the funeral home to get it, to start shooting up with formaldehyde, which I think is actually, if you have no other solution and you're just kind of trying to break it down logically and say, hey, I'm dying, what do they do to keep dead bodies preserved, I think that was a pretty good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, totally agree.
I mean, it doesn't work out for them later, but it does work for a little while. So.
Well, and it's funny because first he shoots it, and then he just starts downing it later. Just downing it.
And it's like in those huge, like maybe I'd say like 5-gallon like glass bottles, and he's like, it looks like he's drinking like moonshine or something, just pouring it all over him.
Right.
But then this is the grossest. There are gross things in this movie. This movie is not quite the special effects showcase as the last movie, but they start kissing, and she throws up while they're kissing, and that made me retch. I'm sorry.
I have a thing for movies where characters puke on each other while they kiss.
Do you?
A movie we put out, Metal Nor, there's a great scene where she pukes in his mouth when they kiss.
But yet you won't watch like Slaughtered Vomit Dolls or anything. Ugh.
Well, I've seen Slaughter Vomit Dolls, and I don't need to see it again, pretty much.
But you just said you had a thing. But that's okay. That's okay. I'm just calling out your contradiction, mister.
Sure. Well, I like the fake stuff. I'm not into the real stuff.
Oh, okay. There you go. So, so they get back home, and then there's a guy who apparently they owe money for drugs. I think. I don't even know if they say that or if that's just the assumption that I made.
That was the landlord.
Oh, okay. Okay, so I said drugs. Maybe it was just rent. Okay.
Yeah.
But they kind of get their first taste of fucking somebody up, and they like it, and then they're not just punk rot. They're like punk rot killers. They're like, I don't know. They're like Mickey and Mallory at this point, kind of.
Yeah.
Maybe not as cool, but they are. Right, but yeah, then we come to Iggy. So tell the folks about Iggy.
Well, Iggy's, as they like to put it, a mall trash poser, and he's a young kid. I mean, the actor seems very young.
I mean, they make a reference to him being the character being 13 or 14, but I'm not sure that the actual actor was too much older.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably pretty accurate to say he's a teenager, and he's kind of hooking up with Sarah, and it's making Muzzy super jealous, and there's some great line, too, where Iggy says something along the lines of, oh, yeah, you're a pussy punk to Muzzy. That really pisses him off, you know?
Yeah, when, of course, he's like the kid who's hanging out in front of Hot Topic eating a Wetzel's pretzel every day.
Where Muzzy's like, what the hell are you doing giving this kid head, you know?
Well, because Sarah's a little insatiable. I think we figured it out. Sarah's a little slutty.
I think she wants to give him the rod. I mean, she's aware of what she's doing by doing that,
Yes, and the thing is, she gets mad at Muzzy for actually injecting him with it. She was just like, you're a terrible person, all this other stuff. But what she was going to do was going to give it to him, too.
Sure.
And she gave it...
Well, because Joel told him earlier, pretty much, I don't know if we established this, but anyone who even pretty much comes in contact with someone who has the rot is going to get the rot.
Oh, right. You go to a public toilet and, you're just basically spreading the rot to everybody else. Yeah. So, I mean, basically by coming into Iggy's, whatever, his domain, they basically gave it to him, too. So, yeah, she has no right to judge. She really has no right to judge. We get there's like these cops or like FBI agents, Men in Black or something. Now they're trailing after them and finding out that they're doing more than just calling in a bomb threat, which you would think that would be enough actually to, they pass that off. That's total 1999 right there. That it's just
and they're aware of Wynkoop as well. They know about Wynkoop and his work for the government.
True.
So they really start staking him out,
Right, as well they should, because, so our great doctor, he likes to talk to things.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. When you laughed like that, you almost sounded like him.
Yeah, well, Joel, most people who know Joel's always great, and he plays a madman amazingly. And this movie's no exception. He has multiple, long monologues where he is pretty much talking to a toilet.
Yes.
And you know, he's talking to the toilet as it is a person who is controlling him, and throughout this movie, and I mean, it's a great performance, actually.
Oh,
I
yes.
mean, you know, he shows so much range and emotion throughout it. I mean, you know, not just kind of the manic craziness, but also, you know, he's there crying and being very emotional, you know.
Right.
But a great performance. Great performance.
Right, because early on in the movie, when he's doing his like mad scientist like monologue that, you know, every mad scientist has to have, he's just like, I will kill them all and I will be alone, blah blah blah. And then at this point in time, he's just like, oh my god, I'm gonna be alone. You know, like he has that like range of like going from I want to rule the world, ha ha ha, to I need a companion.
Yeah. Well, his initial thing early on is he says he's creating this rot virus to pretty much kill everyone except for himself. But as the movie unfolds, you know, he decides, no, I don't want to be alone, and I want to be with Sarah, you know.
Right, for whatever reason. Because he doesn't even really see her that much throughout the movie. It's like he almost develops the crush a little more in her absence. But it doesn't, isn't
well, that's what crazy people do, right?
Well, isn't that life, though, too? Right?
Yeah.
Come on. But... yeah, so basically this is when shit really hits the fan. We're getting into like third act stuff, but Muzzy goes to the punk show, and I love it because he's standing in the shadows, and they're like, oh, hey, Muzzy, what's up? He comes up to him, and they're like, ew, you're oozing! You know, and he basically gets in there and just...
like, punks would really care, and that's the funny thing, but the punk rock guys would probably be like, whoa, you look cool, man.
Yeah, like, oh, you're oozing. I can see the bleeding part being like, oh, you're bleeding. Yeah, but the oozing part, I probably would stay away. But yeah, basically he just gives it to everybody there, while Sarah goes to the funeral home to talk to the good doctor. And yep, but they come back with the antidote back to their house.
I just want to mention, too, that the punk band playing there is a band called the Casualties, who's a pretty big punk band. They're pretty popular, so wanted to point that out.
There you go. See, I never would have known. The music in this is awesome. I mean... oh,
it's a great 90s kind of punk soundtrack. Yeah.
Right, and it really drives it. There are a lot of montages of them just, like, doing, you know, fucked up shit, you know, with, like, some really, really driving punk music, and it's, like, it really works well, but...
very much so.
So is this band still around?
I think so, yeah. You know, I'm not a huge fan, but I know they have quite a big following. You know,
we'll have to look
I was into them when I was younger.
We'll have to look them up. Yeah. But yeah, so I just love that this is the time that, you know, Sarah's just really throwing Muzzy under the bus, because the doctor has the antidote, but he walks in, she's like, you need to take the antidote. He's like, why? She's like, well, I'm not going to do it. You need to do it first.
Yeah. It's like the bogus heroin, you know. Here, you try the bogus heroin first before I do it.
Right, and then if you don't fucking bleed out, then yeah.
And I'll take it.
Yeah. But what I thought was funny too, I mean, she even asked the doctor, okay, what's the worst case scenario that could happen? You know, well, first of all, the worst case scenario is you could fucking rot to, like, just all your skin could fall off over the course of the next few days. But, like, the assumption is that there's, like, enough for both of them, you know? But I'm pretty sure he just had one for her. That doesn't matter anyway, because he punches Muzzy's head off.
Yeah. Which, in a great scene, he punches his head off. I mean, you don't see that coming at all. It totally hits you left field, you know?
Oh, man, and Muzzy's body is still, like, there, moving, and it's, like, not just, like, synapses, like, he's still alive. And she's screaming at him, at the doctor, saying, like, God, I fucking hate you! She grabs Muzzy's head and his body, like, helps his body out.
Yep.
And he has to duct tape his head back on. So I posed this question in our last conversation. I'll pose it again. We can discuss it again, I guess. So they get in the car, and she hands him a roll of duct tape. He duct tapes his head back on. Okay, he's a little fucked up, but he's there. But, like, she gets shot later, and she's dead. Like, I still don't understand the difference between those two things.
And yeah, my guess at the time, I mean, because he's, you know, this happens before the scenes with Sarah, but my guess at the time was kind of typical zombie logic. The brain isn't dead. Therefore, you know, he's still alive, he can tape his head back on.
Now, and I had said maybe it's even reversed because I'm pretty sure she gets shot in the chest. So maybe in this lore, getting shot in the chest is what kills you, but getting your head cut off doesn't. But that actually, it brings up a good question, or good point, though. I had said he even made mention that she was like a day ahead of him. Like, even though she had the virus first, he was deteriorating like a day faster than she was. But actually, once she gets shot, maybe it's at the point where maybe she is getting weaker. Maybe it's like she might seem better, but she is actually a day ahead, and it was based on days. So I can't believe I cannot believe I've thought about this much twice on podcasts. But yeah, they have some.
They do.
Go ahead.
They do kind of establish early on that, they got about a week until they die, pretty much. Like they're going to die regardless, and they only have about a week before they completely rot to death.
Right. And if you think of any terminal illness, what does it look like for any two particular people? It can look completely different. So maybe, she's just handling her rot a little bit better.
Yeah.
Yes. But they have some cute little things between the two of them, though. Like, I mean, when they're in the car, like, she says something to him just as an insult, like, "Is your brain rotting?" And he's like, "Yes, my brain's rotting." Like, there are a few cute little things like that that kind of almost make me kind of think of like a bickering couple. I guess maybe that's where I get it from.
Right.
But yeah, so the doctor is a little pissed off. So what does he do?
Oh, well, he shows up when he's at the punk club. He shows up kind of, and that's probably my favorite scene of the film, when he shows up at the punk club, and Muzzy tells everyone, he goes, "This is the guy responsible for you all rotting. Never mind, he's the one who gave all the punks,
right.
the rot." But so all these punks try to take on Jody Winecoop, and he gets in a kung fu fight, probably with about 10 different guys, and he takes them all out, which is great.
Yeah, because we already know from the head punching thing, he has some sort of like super power type thing. I don't think it's just.
Well, and I think Jody Winecoop must have had something in his contract back in the day that said, "I'm doing kung fu in every movie I'm in." Because if you watch a lot of those early movies, every chance he gets to do his karate and his kung fu, he is doing it,
Yeah, maybe here in 2 weeks. Here, I'll plug this for anybody who is interested, because this is the captive audience. In 2 weeks, in Manchester, Tennessee, is a convention for one day, November 16th, called the Rocky Top Horror Show, and it is very heavy in the SOV kind of guys. We have got Tim Ritter, who's going to be there. I was going to say maybe I could ask him. Also, Donald Farmer is going to be there, and Hugh Gallagher, and a lot of cool people like me. I'm going to be there. So if you guys want to come and see the SOBs who love SOV, I'll be doing some interviews with those guys. I think we're planning on doing the podcast semi-live. Not really sure how that's going to work. But, yeah. So, anyway. There was my little my butt-in segue.
And that convention, too, to mention, that convention is free, I believe, isn't it? I mean, I think anyone can attend. So
it is free.
If you're in the neighborhood, definitely go to that. I mean,
and Tim has said multiple times, like as like a selling point, all you can eat barbecue, all you can eat barbecue, all you can eat barbecue.
Right. I saw that. Yeah.
But I was looking at.
Come on.
Yeah, I think
you got some of the greatest SOV filmmakers ever. It's completely free. All you can eat barbecue. I mean, if I wasn't in California, I would be there.
Yes, I mean, it's going to take me like 5.5 hours to drive down there, and there's beer as well. And and now I think my sister and I were actually going to stay down there because it's a little bit far for us, and so I think Tim and Kathy and Shannon Stockin are staying the night as well on Saturday so that we can film some more alien madness. So,
right.
Yeah, so it's going to be
bring your alien appendage friend.
That was exactly what I said. I'm like, bring my alien penis. But yeah, so there's going to be, it's going to be fun. And there are a lot of other people who are kind of in, like, Donald and Tim's, like, more recent, not shot on video movies. So, I don't know exactly who. I'm going to butcher it. But I do know Shannon Stockin, Michelle McCobb's there. And Ronnie Jonah, who's been in a lot of Donald Farmer's movies. So. Yeah, go there. Look it up. Rocky Top Horror Show. All right, and now we're back. After that word from our sponsor. All right, so we're pretty much at the end. We have basically Joel D gets shot in the dick. We have an angry mob. Things aren't going so well, and it pretty much fades to black at that point. Is that what you remember?
Well, Sarah, he kills Sarah, and then he kills himself. It's actually a pretty grim ending,
right.
But I guess that's how you have to end a movie like this. I mean, they established it early on. They're going to die regardless, so,
Well, and now at this point, they're not just going to die. They've spread it to enough people that you just have to assume that this is going to take over the planet.
Sure, yeah, it's apocalyptic, sure.
Right,
yeah.
And I mean, considering there was like one vial from like one crazy janitor of an antidote, it's probably not going to get solved by the CDC before everybody's dead. Man, okay. And we're laughing. But, so, let's rate it based on the video store scale, the video, the video scale of which we spoke earlier. What would you give this movie?
Last time when we first recorded this, I said 3.5, but I'm going up. I'm going to give this one a 4. I absolutely loved it.
Okay, yes,
I thought it.
Oh, go ahead.
I thought it was such a great movie. I mean, it's fun. It's creative. It's got some great performances, great music. I mean, what's there not to love about this movie? I thought it was great. For a Marcus Koch movie, I did expect a little more gore than was in it. But there was enough gore, it didn't need more, it had enough for the story, and Jodie Winecoop getting in a fight with 10 punk rockers. I mean, yeah, great movie, 4.
Yeah, and I'm exactly the same. As I was sitting here, I'm going, man, I'm rating this motherfucker higher. I'm going with the same. Yeah. I think I said 3.5 before. I'm saying 4 this time. I want to watch it again now, even like us talking about it in a little more cohesive way, because we had gone through some technical difficulties, and then we talked for half an hour, and then we did another movie, and then we did this, and so I think, like, you tend to lose a little steam by the end, but, like, this being, like, fresh now, I'm like, man, I want to go watch this again. Like, this was exciting. I dug it, and I will give Marcus credit on this one again, like I did on the last one. It very well could have just been, like, just thread together some, like, stupid-ass story so that you can show off your effects stuff. I mean, and that totally would have been fine, but he didn't. It had a story, it had characters that we cared about, that we knew their names. I mean, we knew the frickin' poser Mallrat's name. So yeah.
That's what's really great about his movies, both of these movies that we watched, Bad Blood and The Rot, is they're not just hastily put together films. They're obviously, he had a story in mind. He really wanted to kind of tell these stories, and that definitely sets them apart from some other people in the scene. And, they're coming from a place of heart, and it shows,
And so also mentioning Marcus and Jesse Seitz. So I've already plugged them before and said they won Best Directors at the Nightmares Film Fest, but it was just announced today that they will be showing their film Beyond Horror at Days of the Dead in Chicago, which is... Pause for an edit point while I make sure of my dates. Which is the weekend of November 22nd. So they will be at Days of the Dead Chicago showing that. Marcus also will be taking part in the Effects Challenge too, in the House of Indie Horrors track. So if you are into independent horror in general, not just those guys, Days of the Dead has a whole awesome segment now just devoted completely to indie horror. So
that's great.
There you go. All right. So how was your first experience on SOBs who love SOV?
Well, for experience 1.5, I had a great time. A lot of fun. I love these movies. I love talking about them. So it comes very natural to me.
So now on Thursday, I believe Slade will be joining back, and if you want to, you can join with us. We are going to be talking about Satan's Storybook, And also,
Oh,
yes, if you would like
the
to.
Ginger Lynn movie. I know that one. Yeah.
Okay, and then the other one is Campfire Tales, which I don't know that that's shot on video.
That's not shot on video.
Yeah.
That's film. Yeah.
Yeah, but it kind of goes with it. Again, we bend the rules here. We just go with the spirit of it all, right? So we're gonna do those too. If you'd like to join us on Thursday. So.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah.
Yeah. And again, anybody who is anywhere near Manchester, Tennessee on November 16th, come to the Rocky Top Horror Show. And you'll have to look it up, but it's at like the barbecue joint in Manchester. It's actually at the barbecue joint.
But I mean, talk about a group of legends. I mean, that's like SOV royalty there.
Oh,
you know,
my
Hugh
God.
Gallagher. Hugh Gallagher doesn't do many conventions anymore.
I've never.
And so
Yeah.
for him to go do one, that's very awesome. You know.
Right. So I've got to like catch up on all his movies. I mean, again, I know I've seen a lot.
Cool.
Like
Right.
I've seen so many of these. I know that like I kind of missed out like on the gore horror movies, which is really unfortunate because that's what I like to call myself. I love that title. So I'll have I have like a couple weeks to sit there and binge watch all his movies. So.
Oh, I definitely recommend it. There's some of the best of the SOV genre, in my opinion.
All right.
Love Hugh's work.
There, it comes straight from Tony's mouth. That's right. All right, guys. Well, I'm gonna get this bitch edited and posted finally, and then we'll be back with some more SOBs who love SOV in the coming weeks. So, thank you guys very much.
Thanks.